Art 2 students, hello. How are you today? I'm doing all right. I'm sitting at home by the window and it's a little bit too bright out here, but I hope that it's okay with the picture. Anyways, we're working on our quilling project for Art 2, and I'm going to show you just very briefly some simple different shapes you can make by quilling. So things that you need. You need paper, which you have shredded. So here's my paper, my strips of paper. If you have a paper shredder at home, what a great thing to use. We have a paper shredder at school that I would offer to let you use, except for I tried to, and it also like cross cuts the pieces. So that's not helpful. So what I used was a paper cutter. So if you're at school and you want to use our paper cutter, that was pretty quick. And you could also use an X-Acto knife. You could also use scissors. I don't think these have to be perfect. So however you want to do it is fine, but you need to cut some strips of paper that I would say are about 1/4 inch wide. Okay. I use the length of my paper, so they're as long as a piece of paper is. What else you need is glue. I'm using Elmer's glue. Fight me about how much I love this glue. This is the best glue in the whole entire universe, and I will argue it as often as I can, okay? What I want you to do though is put a little bit of glue in a pile somewhere, preferably not like right on your desk, right? This is on a piece of cardboard, so it won't soak through there. Because we're just gonna dab into it, either with our finger, with the paper, with something like that, okay? And then what else do you need? That's probably it. That's enough stuff, isn't it? I did end up using a needle tool a little bit to help roll my paper because I had one here because I'm doing a clay video later. So if you had something like that at school, that would be just fine. Anyways, once you have all of your strips cut, I'm going to show you a few techniques. We're going to try these together in class. So the first thing we're going to make is called a tight coil. And most of the things that we're going to do are going to start with a coil. But before we learn how to just make a coil, we're going to make a tight coil. So I think the trickiest part is to get started and just kind of bend that paper on itself. But once you get it, you can actually kind of roll it between your fingers. I don't know how well you can see what's happening here. So I can just like slide it down my thumb there and then scooch it back and slide it again. And you just want to make sure that you're pinching it together. Once in a while I do kind of, make sure it's even this way as well. You also could kind of wrap your paper around that way, which works too. It just takes a little bit longer. And remember too, if you push too hard or squeeze too hard, you might end up like folding or bending the paper or making this not a perfect circle. I think all of that's fine. I think you're going to get better as it goes. I also think it's paper, so if it's a little disheveled, you can always squeeze it the other way and kind of even things out, okay? So this is a tight coil because it's a tight coil of paper. I think that's probably how the names are going to be. So when you're done, you're just going to take that little flap, dip it into your glue, and then you're just going to hold it nicely while you count to 10. I think this is why people don't like Elmer's, because they're not patient enough to let it dry. But really, it doesn't take very long to dry. Wipe off the excess, and then that's it. It's your tight coil. If this was your piece of artwork, this piece of paper here, you would also glue it down. So then same thing, you'd kind of dip it in there. I would dip off any extra. So this is the amount of glue I have on there. And then, I don't know, that's where I want it. Just stick it where you want it to go. So the next thing we're going to make is a loose coil. So again, you can start this the same. If you do have a needle tool or something at home that will help you, I think it's only super helpful at the beginning. Then it's kind of helpful after that, but it might be a little easier to get started here if you have kind of something to grab onto. And then same thing, I just kind of roll it, right? Pinch it in between your fingers and just roll that needle tool too. And eventually you can take that out and just keep rolling. So again, we're not making a tight coil this time. We're making a loose coil, but we're starting it the same way, which is to make a tight coil. And I watched a couple quilling video demos, and people have some fancy tools, man, including like the proper size circle that they then rest this in and kind of let it go to loosen it to the size that they want it to. You can do that too. You just kind of loosen your grip on it. Make sure to keep this flap down, right? But loosen your grip, and then when it's the size you want it to be, that's when you can stop. So if I'm happy with this right here, again, I'll kind of open up that flap on the end. Make sure to kind of hold on to everything here so that it doesn't fall apart. And then squeeze that together, counting to 10 so that it'll stay. Okay, there it goes. Whoops, I dropped it. And then this is your loose coil, okay? What you can do then, again, is wherever you want this to be on your piece of paper for your final piece, you're going to dip it in the glue, get rid of the extra glue, and then stick that where you want it as well. Okay? And I mean, when you glue it to the paper, that's going to help things stay the way that you want them to as well. So now we're going to do a couple different shapes based on coils, okay? So you will start all of these with a coil. I've already made this. If you've loosened your coil a little bit, you can tighten it back up. But really we want a loose coil to make different shapes. So you're going to create your coil like you did. You're going to let it loosen up because that's part of this. And then you're going to glue the edge just like we did before. You're going to make different shapes. So the first one here is a teardrop shape. So we're just going to pinch one side, right, to create a teardrop shape. And that's it. You'll get, the pieces inside will fold different ways, so you'll get some cool designs that way. If you wanted it to be, tighter, you just pinch it more so it's narrower, right? If you want it a looser teardrop, you just manipulate it that way so it's a little bit looser. So there is your teardrop shape. I think there's another version too where like they make the tip of this a little curlicue, so that's another variation as well. But they're all essentially the same thing, right? We're pinching the top and letting the other side be loose to create that kind of teardrop shape. And then same thing as everything else. We dip it in the glue, we get rid of the extra, and then you put it on your piece of paper however you want your design to be and glue it down. And the next one is kind of similar. The eye shape, it's called, like a football shape. So again, starting with a loose coil, and once you have that glued down, you're just going to, instead of pinching one side, you're going to pinch them both to create kind of a diamond shape. Again, if you want it tighter or looser, it's going to be a little bit different depending on how you do it. Again, you could manipulate the ends here. You could make them go different ways. You could make them go the same way for a different sort of design, right? So depending on how you bend them and fold them, that's the shape you're going to make. But we were starting off here with the eye shape. Sorry, I might have bent this a little bit too much, I think. Again, starting with a loose coil, you can make different geometrical shapes. So a triangle, a square, a diamond. What else? Like a half a circle, things like that. So again, starting with a loose circle, we're gluing the edge down. And then if you wanted to do like a triangle, let's say, again, you're just bending and folding it to create that triangle. If you want nice corners, you know, really use your fingernails to make them nice, tight angles. But that's it. You'll see this is all kind of the same, right? You're just bending them in different ways. Whoops. To get the shape you want. Next, we're going to make a crescent moon. Again, starting with the loose circle. And you're just going to pinch it so the ends come around. And make a moon shape. Oh, look, you could do letters like that too, right? There's a C for you. Okay, crescent moon. And then there's another shape called an arrow. Again, starting with the loose circle. And this one really looks kind of like an arrowhead, right? Just the tip of the arrow. So you're going to kind of pinch it in the back and at the same time pinch the arrow shape on the other edge. This kind of looks like a heart too. If I wouldn't have made these back angles so tight, it could have been a heart too. Right? But that's the arrowhead. Okay, also a couple things I want to show you. You can use your scissors to curl these. So there's some other shapes too, like speaking of a heart, you can make a heart like so. You can fold your strip of paper in half. And then you can actually curl both these ends in just like we did before. But before I do that quick, I'm just going to show you if you wanted a loose curl of some sort. If you've ever curled ribbon before for gifts, this is the same thing. You just take the straight edge of your scissors and you hold it firmly with your thumb, and then you quickly pull it through, whoops, to the end of the ribbon, and it'll curl it for you automatically. So if you wanted some loose curls of some sort, you could do that too. Remember, like, you can just draw with these strips of paper too. So you could just make them nice shapes, you know, and leave them on your paper somehow that way. Again, you just would glue the edges down. You also, I think, in the piece we saw, or the examples we saw from that artist, she used a lot of accordion folds. So accordion folds just go back and forth in the same path. So you just try to get the edges to line up and just go back and forth. right? So you could move this in different shapes too. You could glue the ends together and make kind of flowers or star shapes that way. You saw her, the artist in the video, I think she just made accordion shapes and kind of filled in spaces with them too. So that's always an idea. Then another thing you can do just by comparison, so this is 2 strips of paper in a tight coil. So if I just tighten up my yellow coil here, I can kind of compare them to you. So I just took 2 of my strips of paper and glued them together and then created a tight coil. So this coil is twice as big as this one, right? So if you wanted larger shapes, you probably just need to use a little more paper. You also could use this if you didn't glue the end, right? This is going to get you a bigger loose coil. It might have been a little tight too long here. We got to loosen it up. But you can compare that to the first loose coil we made. You know, this one's a little bit bigger than that one, and you could make it bigger too. So there's some ideas for you too. One more thing. If you fold your strip of paper in half, you can make a heart. If you start, we make a couple tight coils from the end here. And do the same thing on the other side. Then you would take a dab of glue, put it in the middle here, and just hold those together to make a heart. Right, and you glue that on your paper too. And again, you know, you could make spirals that way, you know, an S shape that way. You can make something that looks like ram horns if you just do it the opposite way, right? Instead of curling it in, we curl it to the outside on both sides. That could be really too if you made like these could be leaves of a flower. Remember too, you could curl this. If you didn't want something that tight, you could do something like that. So there's all sorts of different shapes you can make that I think are pretty easy to do, right? So if there's a shape that you don't know how to make, please let me know. I'd be happy to help you problem solve it, but I bet you can figure a lot of these out yourself. And if you have any questions on the project, please let me know and I will try to answer them as best as I can. And I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you in class. Bye.